You want to make your fantasy sports league more than a fantasy? Then you need Trophy Smack.
It's the #1 store for fantasy and tournament trophies, belts, draft boards, loser awards, and other ridiculous products.
Trophy Smack is more than just a trophy company with outstanding customer service and products. It's the very essence and heart of every fantasy league. And if you click now, TrophySmack.com gives you free shipping, a free loser poster, and can have the hardware to you in a few days. Bragging rights included. Go to TrophySmack.com right now and take your fantasy league to the next level.
Welcome to the Dynasty Happy Hour podcast. Pull up a chair and kick up your feet as you get ready to enjoy some of the industry's most entertaining and actionable Dynasty content on the planet. We're talking veterans, rookies, sleepers, and oh yeah, you know the crew has those dad jokes ready for you. So let's not wait any longer and bring on the host or some combination of Doug, James, and Tyler.
Welcome back to the Dynasty Happy Hour, presented this week and most weeks by Fantasy Points. Make sure you go on fantasypoints.com. The media group is awesome. So whether you're looking for podcasts, you're looking to get a sign up for 2022, over 90% of the people that signed up for the past this year made the playoffs in fantasy. Absolutely awesome deal. So there's an early bird special on Fantasy Points. So check that out. And if you're still a slacker and you're waiting on getting your league trophy, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, go on TrophySmack.com, use code DHHRing, and get yourself a free $60 ring when you purchase a belt, a gangster grill, or a trophy. Tyler, if you're watching on the video feed, I still have to order mine, Tyler. That's our championship ring from Trade Addict 7 that Tyler and I won. Let's go. We're ready. So, yeah.
Round two.
Do you both get to put one finger in each?
We dock on each side.
Me in the middle. You're like Lady in the Tramp when it comes to the ring.
Shout out to Gabe.
Just a tip.
Shout out to Gabe for the Lady in the Tramp reference.
You always got to meet in the middle. I mean, I'm not somebody who's just like, oh, no, they're going to do all the work. No, I'm going to put in some effort. Come on.
It's a 50-50. It's a partnership.
I want to know how much we're going to meet in the middle today over these wide receivers, because I was looking over some things and I'm like, man, this season was crazy, but the future looks bright for some of these players, and some of them it's going to be a different landscape altogether. So I'm excited for today.
Also, I want to step in and say right away, I was thinking about this earlier, and there's a lot of Gabe Davis talk, and like, oh, Gabe Davis, is he or isn't he?
Love Gabe Davis.
I mean,
101.
I'm going to say this, and as much as we love day 3 receivers and hoping they hit, I got to tell you what, I feel like teams don't give them the opportunity enough as, say, a undrafted or late round running back would. Like we saw San Francisco, James Robinson. It doesn't matter draft capital with receiver, but I feel like teams are just cemented on draft capital with receivers. I mean, Gabe Davis, we see it with Donovan Peoples-Jones and how he has success and how he's
Harry.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the chances that man gets, I honestly, it sucks, and I do think Gabe Davis will get his chance because smart teams are that for a reason. They are smart. They realize when they've hit. Unlike, say, Cleveland Browns, the reason why bad teams may stay bad is they don't realize they have a talent on the roster already as a Donovan Peoples-Jones. And like I said last year, as much as I loved DPJ, I felt like he wasn't going to get that opportunity just because of that 6th-round capital. And they're constantly going to feel like, well, we need to bring in another guy. We need a high draft capital guy. That I hope Gabe Davis doesn't get stuck in that. And I have a feeling he might. There's a chance they draft somebody. So before we get in the receivers, I wanted to put that statement out. I thought of that earlier.
Yeah, lots of takes on Gabe Davis after his 4-touchdown game against the Chiefs just a week ago. Now the Chiefs, they lost. It is the Cincinnati Bengals going to the Super Bowl, boys.
Let's go.
I'm really excited, and the NFC Championship game is going on as we record, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. That's a close game right now. So yeah, could be a really interesting Super Bowl here. Cincinnati, that's a hell of a story. who knew, right? I think they were like some crazy odds to make the Super Bowl at the beginning of the season.
You say Kunu or who knew?
Kunu. That's my island name. It's Kunu.
P-P-O-P.
Are you
Shout out to
Island
forgetting
Boy?
Island Boy. Shout out to Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Such a good movie.
Classic.
Absolutely.
But no, I love a good underdog story, and the Bengals definitely hit the nail on the head with that. Like, I am excited. Joe Burrow looked calm, cool, and collective out there today, even though he did get roughed up. And
he was elusive in the
some
pocket,
money
though.
today because
Nice.
I picked the Bengals
Who day?
with giving 3 points, so I was happy about that. Or 2 points rather.
That first quarter, I didn't feel like it was over personally. Like when they came down, like when it was 21-3, I thought to myself, maybe it's because I've seen it happen a lot.
Hey, as a Patriots fan, I've seen it happen.
And that memory is just embedded. I'm like, you know what? That's not that bad. I mean, at least not 28-3, right?
Yeah, tale of two halves. I mean, Kansas City just couldn't do anything in the second half. It was crazy.
And hey, good on you, the defensive coordinator. He changed things up, and the defense that he went to, just phenomenal. I mean, they got to Mahomes the second half.
Yeah,
and shout out, one real reason why Coach of the Year should be cemented for Zach Taylor too, because I think that was great.
We shall see. NFL Honors Week coming up in a couple weeks.
How crazy is it? Now, Zach Taylor, that's home improvement, right? As well?
I think so.
I mean,
then there's Jonathan Taylor. He's the running back of the
Jonathan
Colts, right?
Taylor was home improvement.
Zach was one of the kids. And it's Tim the Toolman Taylor, so there was a Zach
there was
Taylor.
a Trent Taylor in the game today. Remember him?
Trent Taylor, yeah.
Yeah, remember him? I remember. Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Remember, he was a hot name at receiver too. So this is we're gonna go right into that.
I heard they're bringing that show back. Home Improvement.
They bring everything back. Hollywood sucks. Let's be honest. Everything's a sequel, a comic book, or a retread.
What if it's all in?
This is all original right here.
All in the same. A comic book redo, retread. Wow, like
yeah,
I can't even think about it.
Cowboy Bebop. Let's go.
Let's not. All right, let's get into these January 2022 startup dynasty ADP for wide receivers. We've done running backs. We've done quarterbacks. This week, it's wide receiver, probably the deepest position in fantasy football right now. You know, looking at these guys that are all wide receiver ones in startup, I mean, you're looking at ADP of the wide receiver 12 is 25th overall. So wide receivers are hot in these streets, and there's lots of great names. We've got some rookies from this year. We've got some second and third year players. It's a really exciting time if you invested heavily into young wide receivers in your drafts and you hit, because you probably have a God squad like Tyler and I that looks awesome. So let's get into the first one overall. Near and dear to Tyler's heart because he plays in his backyard, not his actual backyard. That would be weird. But it's Justin Jefferson.
Invites open though.
He is the wide receiver 1 in ADP in January, second overall, ADP of 2.17. I think this is completely justified. Over 3,000 receiving yards in his first 2 seasons. We saw the positive touchdown regression hit this year. You know, Adam Thielen, he played well without Thielen. He showed that he can be the alpha. He doesn't need another guy to get that target share and to absolutely pop off. So for me, Justin Jefferson, if you own him, he's the warmest of warm blankets. You can roll out there every week, get double-digit targets, and feel absolutely great about. So congrats. If you drafted Justin Jefferson, you win. Tyler, talk to me about your boy.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's maybe 2 players that I'd be fine with up here. We're going to talk about the other one, but man, Jefferson, he was my wide receiver 1A, that class. I stacked him up against other rookies. I did with you and Tim. I said, I'll take Jefferson. You take all the other rookies on a water bet. You guys haven't paid up for that, but
Tim's no longer here, so that makes me exempt.
Exactly. I'll have to talk to my lawyers and see if that's true.
It's in the small print. Small print. Always in the small print.
You know, I can't read. First of all, now small print. Now you're just making it way too hard.
That's why I did it.
Yeah, that was actually pretty clever. God,
clever.
Can't
get one by me.
But yeah, Jefferson up here in Minnesota, and that's gonna be the interesting part. I mean, there's rumors Jim Harbaugh could be the coach
as of tomorrow.
Now there's rumors he's going to Miami. Like that's now the current rumor is that he's going to sign.
He's trying to get his price pumped up, is what he's trying to do.
Either
leverage.
that
It's called leverage.
or he's leveraging for Michigan to pay the piper, which makes no sense because if you hear any of the stories, they actually deducted his pay this past season. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a huge mess. I think Harbaugh would be just fine. Harbaugh, tough defense, run the ball. But, man, you also got to have that wide receiver one in today's game. And Jefferson's it. He's going to get fed targets. Thielen, like you said, I feel like he's going to kind of be relegated down to a red zone type guy. They are getting Irv Smith back, which I do like still. But Jefferson is that dude. He's the guy that's going to be the focal point of that offense. And I'm good with that. If you go into a non-super flex startup and you want him as the 101, do it. That's fine with me.
Do it. James.
I'm all right. So I always look at a startup at where do I want to win? Do I want to win up front or do I want to continue to win? And as much as Jefferson has impressed and his progression since last year to this year, big jump in receiving yards, I'm a little nervous for his future. And now I know he's 101 right now.
Is this 2021?
Are you going to say he's going to be Odell Beckham Jr.? Is he going to have that path?
No, I don't think he's going to like have a big fall off, but I think he is going to have somewhat of a fall off, not for the 2022 season, but for the 2023 season when Kirk Cousins is gone.
He's gone. No, he's gone this year. There's
not
no
renewing his contract. They have to keep him this year. They owe him way too much money.
They don't.
All right. And then if they do get Jim Harbaugh, and I looked at this when I was going over these names, and I'm like, man, if Harbaugh goes to the Vikings, what do we really look at from the receiving end of things? Because if you go over Michigan's numbers now, I dug into this a little bit. 20 touchdowns for the running back. Only the best wide receiver on the team had 3 touchdowns and like 650 receiving yards.
Can I rebuttal this? You're talking about Big Ten football.
You're talking about college.
Regardless of the fact,
Big Ten football is all running, hardly any passing, hard defense. That is Big Ten football. I live in Big Ten country up here. That's what it is.
Even before Harbaugh, Michigan didn't have a passing attack.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think it's Harbaugh. I think it's Kevin O'Connell.
Well, I mean, the only thing that holds me back, and the next guy on this list, I would probably take because his future is cemented with a great organization that is built around their quarterback. The Vikings aren't doing that. I'm going to put number 2. I put number 2.
Mike Brown
number 2 on this list
enters the chat
at number 1. And if you want to use it as a segue, let's
I know that the Bengals are in the Super Bowl.
No, it had nothing to do. I did my research.
But to call them a great organization is a stretch Armstrong.
The owner loves to pinch pennies.
I'll say the weapons on the team are a little bit stronger.
He's tied to a great quarterback, which is
correct.
And
a good to great head coach. I'm not going to give him great. I'd say good to great.
Good to great, somewhere in that middle area,
like medium high type.
I just think that the great connection, the LSU connection, Jefferson maybe losing Cousins. Who comes in after that? We don't know. Who's the head coach? We don't know. There's a little bit more question mark for the future of Justin Jefferson than Jamar Chase right now. So if I'm in a startup and I'm playing for the future, I'm going to look at Jamar Chase ahead of Justin Jefferson.
Jefferson to me is a talent like DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think it matters who's at quarterback. He'll make it happen because he's so damn good. So that's my take.
I'm not going to say he's going to stink at all, but there are some questions that I'm concerned about. And
I completely agree with that. I mean, I honestly think that if they do go with an O'Connell, they want to rebuild. They want to if they go with a Harbaugh, I still think they want to rebuild. Kind of like with Gruden. Cousins, I do think it's dealt. I have a feeling
cap problems again.
It's over 60%. There's rumors of bringing Baker from Cleveland and giving Cousins to go back with Stefanski, and we would get a couple picks with Baker, but they would take the whole salary. Now, if Baker's with Jefferson, I think Baker, we're gonna find out who you are then. Like that's
Baker didn't work with OBJ. Like, if he can't work with Jefferson, Baker ain't it. Like,
Jefferson is, I think, better than OBJ by a lot right now. Like people would say otherwise, but I think Jefferson's
routes are a little bit crispier.
Yes,
than OBJ's.
They're in the oven for a little longer,
a little bit crispier.
Crisp.
But yeah,
crisp.
There's rumors of that. There's rumors of Deshaun Watson coming in, and then the Vikings trading Cousins to Cleveland.
All right, I'm gonna put my host gavel down, and for the rest of this episode, let's not speculate on stuff that could happen. Let's just speculate on what we know about the players right now. Because we could spin off in 70 directions, and this could take way longer than it
I wasn't trying to make it into speculation competition, but I was just warning people of the future of the Vikings organization.
My 2 cents. My 2 cents. Me personally, I'd go Chase over Jefferson right now.
That's fair,
but it doesn't really matter. I think they're both there.
It's 1A, 1B. Yeah,
it's like choosing your favorite kid, even though some days you might favor one.
It's very
my
true.
favorite dog. Yeah, I'll say it that way.
So we got
I don't want to bring my kid into.
We have Justin Jefferson at the wide receiver 1. I don't think we need to talk too much about Jamar Chase. Everybody knows like what we just said with Burrow and the great organization. Just kidding. But wide receiver 3 is been very polarizing this year.
He's bad, right?
We saw his rookie year; he had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. His second year, he had 1,100 receiving yards. So he did grow after year 2. But now, because he had kind of a quiet playoff game, people are like, what's the deal with CeeDee Lamb? And people are selling him or they're off of him. I don't know. It seems like for a guy that just had 1,100 receiving yards, were people expecting like 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns? Like,
yes.
That's what I feel. And I think that's probably unfair to expect from CeeDee Lamb.
Excuse me, Doug. They have an extra game. We should get like 1,700, maybe 18 touchdowns.
That's true.
And if you don't have over 2,000 yards, you're not worth anything anymore.
Yeah,
I know. It's terrible. So CeeDee Lamb is the wide receiver 3. His overall ADP is 5.5. So obviously he's right up there. What are we doing with CeeDee Lamb? James, I'll go to you on this one first. I think as of all the players on this list, to me, like he's definitely the most polarizing right now.
He's actually the most interesting as well, because if you look at it, he was at the top of this list last year at this time. He was the startup 101 receiver that you wanted on your team, and he has slipped a little bit. Not much. He still costs a pretty penny, but right now there are questions about the Dallas Cowboys and their receiving core. We have Michael Gallup probably most likely leaving. Cedric Wilson stepped up, but he doesn't command target share. So you have CeeDee Lamb possibly stepping into a bigger target share.
You're missing.
Dalton Schultz is going to be gone too.
Dalton Schultz is a free agent. That's huge in the middle of the field.
Jarwin's still on the contract, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's making decent money for them. Yeah.
So he'll be there. But my main point is CeeDee Lamb's target share may even go up more than it did this past year. It all depends on that offensive line. If they can improve on the offensive line and give Dak protection and not rely on the running back to step up in the pocket and block all the time, give Dak a little bit more options. I see CeeDee Lamb hitting his ceiling this year in his third year. So if you can get him, you're not going to get him on the cheap, but I'm definitely okay with him being my startup wide receiver on my squad, my first guy that I choose.
Yeah. Tyler, what do you think?
I mean, I traded for him in UDPL about a month back. I gave up, we'll talk about another receiver. I gave up Waddle and a 23 first for Lamb and a 23 second.
That's not
now
bad.
The first and second could be closer than we think. So that was my thinking, and I'm happy with that. Like we'll get into Waddle, but yeah, I'm all about buying CeeDee Lamb right now. I've had a ton of questions on Twitter asking, do I get out of CeeDee Lamb now? It's like, no. Like the guy's had 2 straight 1,000-yard receiving, and he's not even in his third year. It's still true. It takes receiver probably your third year is when you finally break out. Jefferson and Chase.
It used to be the third year, but
if
you look at it, the
he
second
only
year
had
is
935 yards.
And I honestly think that the reason why we're so down on Lamb is because touchdowns. They weren't there this year. Dalton Schultz took them all. And I think that was because what James said. Dak wasn't getting enough time. He's going to look to the middle of the field. Dalton Schultz was a safety blanket this year.
Pollard and Elliott had a good amount of receiving touchdowns too.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And I mean, Elliott had a good amount. Didn't he have double-digit touchdowns again or no?
Total? Yeah, Elliott had, double digits.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of factors going into it, but I think a lot of it's going to be money. And honestly, I think Jerry Jones is going to listen to Troy Aikman when Troy Aikman says, hey, you got a talent like CeeDee Lamb and they're playing single coverage. Get him the ball right away. He should have had 10. Like, Troy's was not wrong. He should have had 10 catches first half until they changed the cover. But, yeah, I think a lot of it was McCarthy and Kellen Moore getting in their own heads, headbutting. They need to get on the same page before this offense can get rolling again.
Yeah, I think CeeDee Lamb is you should probably send out some feelers and see if you can acquire him, because we all know how in Dynasty fantasy football, someone's attitude can change about a player in the course of a game or two, or even a quarter or two, let's be honest. And I think CeeDee Lamb is like, maybe someone's like, I didn't get what I thought I was going to get out of him, and they're down, and they draw a narrative of why it could be negative, and you're like, you capitalize on that. So I think that is worth exploring. So our next wide receiver, just a 24-year-old receiver, an absolute stud. He's the wide receiver 4. His ADP is 6.83 on Dynasty League football. And that is A.J. Brown of the Tennessee Titans. Now, we saw A.J. Brown battle through some injuries this year, but when he came back, it was the prime example of a receiver taking over a game and winning a game that I saw this year. It just goes to show what A.J. Brown is absolutely capable of, and he looked amazing. So we all know that the talent is there. Part of me is that the offense is still... It was suspect this year. No Derrick Henry, I know, played a part in that. Tannehill didn't play all that well. But I think A.J. Brown, from a talent standpoint, he's in the conversation with some of these guys that we put, ahead of him. So I'd be interested to hear, James, how are you treating A.J. Brown right now?
I'm staying away, believe it or not. Okay. I think he's going to be good for 2 years with Tannehill until 2024. But his big production, his big games where he can take over a game, were limited. Yes, some of it was injury. Other games, it wasn't injury. Their main focus in Tennessee is to run the ball and then try to get the ball
for how much longer
to A.J. Brown. And that's a good question. But what do they do when they can't get the running game going?
But if you are reading 2 years ahead, you should also put that in the perspective, huh, James?
I'm saying he's solid. He's solid for the next 2 years. The other thing that I pointed out was that he only went over 19 fantasy points 3 times this season. So he's
3 healthy games.
It's 3 healthy games. 5, maybe you can count 6 games out of the, let's see, he missed 3 games. So 6 out of 15, they were good. That's not a good percentage. That's only 34%, 35%. That's not what I want out of my main guy on my dynasty team. I want something more consistent. I don't care if the ceiling is 50 points if I'm only going to get it 3 times out of a year. Like, that's not going to win me a championship. That's not something I want to rely on.
He was actually, I'm
not saying he's a bad player. It's just, I'm just looking at it from an ownership standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, I own A.J. Brown in a good amount of spots, and yeah, I agree. He was very frustrating to start. There was times when you get 4, and then there's times, like Doug said, he won you the week.
Right.
For me, I have a Julio-esque feeling about him, as in Julio had injury-riddled career to start, missed some games here and there, and then took off at like 25 years old. I mean, just blew
he was averaging
up
1,500 yards a year, easily, but only 4 touchdowns.
Right, 4 touchdowns.
I honestly, I think A.J. Brown is due for that. I'm gonna see. I could have a hot take right now. We're gonna see A.J. Brown right up there with Justin Jefferson next year, just due to the production I think he will get. I fear for Derrick Henry for the fact that he's got a metal plate in his foot, and that dude is just all about 300 touches.
If the Titans were smart, they would see like what Donta Foreman did and sign him to a cheap deal and just like timeshare the crap out of those two.
They need to get Henry at that.
Foreman was good.
Yeah, that offense is good. I just think Henry's starting to slow down. You're seeing that bus. The wheels fall off. The wheels on the bus don't go as good around anymore.
They fall right the F off.
Right. As much as we think Derrick Henry is going to last forever, he's not. And at 29 years old, this could turn into A.J. Brown's team, as we saw Julio Jones take control of that Falcons team when he was around the same age. So I can see both sides.
So you're buying?
I am buying. Okay. I'm all about buying A.J. Brown. He had a very bad season. He is still young. He is still one of the best receivers with the ball in his hands. Just he's like Deebo, but almost
versatile,
like a tank. Like Deebo's like when you saw the Italian Job with those Mini Coopers, how he can fit through anything, he can do anything. AJ Brown's is a tank. He's crashing through that building. He doesn't care who's there. That's how I see AJ Brown. Now that could be the factor of why he's injured all the time, but I am all about buying AJ Brown.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. All right, let's get to our oldest receiver so far. Not that age is like a super thing, but in Dynasty, it factors in. So wide receiver 5, he is ADP of 11.5, and that is Tyreek Hill, 27 years old. We all know that Tyreek Hill's ceiling on a week-to-week basis is one of the highest it can be. But like A.J. Brown, if you look at Tyreek Hill game in and game out, it can be ceiling, floor. Sometimes there's not a lot in between. So he's another frustrating player. He's going to win you some weeks, but he's going to drive you nuts in some other weeks. Now, obviously, he's tied to Patrick Mahomes, who was the QB1 in your Superflex startups and looked amazing this playoffs, by the way.
Does that mean he's tied to Jackson Mahomes too?
Unfortunately, yeah. Which
their
sucks.
TikToks are hooked up together.
Yeah. So Tyreek Hill, I have no qualms with him being here. He's not someone that I'm going out and trying to acquire. If I own or if I roster him, I would probably be looking to possibly sell.
Bingo.
Tyreek Hill at this ADP. I would want some of the younger receivers lower on this list plus for Tyreek Hill. Tyler, what do you think?
I'll just repeat that. I agree. That's what I'll say. As much as I like Tyreek Hill, I think this is where you got to go.
I'm in total agreement with that, and
nice.
Yeah, he's going to hit that cliff eventually, and we don't know what the atmosphere in Kansas City is going to look like much longer. Kelsey might be leaving eventually. I don't know. They've always seemed like they want to give Mahomes more help, but it really hasn't panned out. So Hill is valuable in a win now sort of situation. Yes. So look for those teams that want to win now, and Hill will definitely put them over the edge and get a good return for it as well.
Yeah, and the thing with Tyreek Hill, you've been playing with house money for years. If you picked him up in his rookie season, he probably didn't go in your rookie draft.
Or you bought, during the incident.
Yeah, you bought in every league.
I bought him for a second in almost every league, and yeah.
Yeah, so you've been playing with house money, and it's paid off for a long time. So cash that. Take those chips that you found under the couch and go cash them in. That's what I'm saying. Cha-ching. All right, let's get into our next wide receiver. He's the oldest receiver in the top 12, and he's still pretty awesome, but his future is cloudy. It's Davonte Adams.
With a chance of meatballs.
With a chance of ball meat? What? So Davonte Adams is wide receiver 6, ADP of 13.83. Now, he is a free agent. Now, rumors are that Green Bay is going to franchise him.
They can't.
No?
They have no money. They absolutely can't.
They are the worst.
Here's the thing. They can franchise him and then try to figure it out. That's happened before.
They can't even. Okay. I was listening to a Packers podcast, actually. Yeah, surprise,
Packers
Minnesota
podcast.
So it was a guy who actually did a bunch of research on the whole offseason. Now, if Rodgers re-signs, they have to restructure the contract. But if you do that, you're pushing Rodgers' money in the future, which they no longer want to do anymore because that would kind of push their team into desperate mode when he leaves in a year or two. If they let go of Rodgers, they can get Adams back. But then is it worth it when you're kind of in a quote unquote rebuild, which puts in another perspective? Do you let Adams just walk, or do you pay him? Which is going to
probably like we shouldn't have paid Aaron Jones. Damn it.
Which is going to look like well, honestly, that's not a bad signing in the case that if they do go into rebuild mode, they're going to run. That's all they're going to do.
Yeah,
they're going to run, and then play action pass with Jordan Love. Robert Tunyon's a free agent. They've got a huge mess.
DeGuara season.
The only wide receiver they have under contract is Amari Rodgers right now. Randall Cobb is like $9 million in the books.
I thought you were going to say 9 million years old, but
that too.
I mean, that's also true.
Beautiful eyes, though.
And it's a mess there. That whole offense is a mess. They've got problems on the offensive line they need to figure out. They've got more issues than worrying about Adams. So, in my opinion, I think they let Adams walk. I think I hope they go into rebuild mode. They're going to see the NFC North and just how big of a mess it is right now, because it is. I mean, Detroit could be the best team in this division next year, or Chicago. Like that could be the turn, because Minnesota could be a dumpster fire if they, go a different route, and the Packers. So for me, I am okay with Adams leaving. The issue is not a good success rate for receivers going to new teams. So
not tied to one of the best quarterbacks of all time.
That is true. And then they're like, well, what if Rodgers follows? That ain't happening. Rodgers ain't going with or Adams is going with Rodgers just because they signed it. Speculation is that he goes to Denver. They just signed Tim Patrick and Sutton. Then they have, a breakout player in Judy for
and KJ Hamler. They still have Hamler.
God, I hope his knee is okay.
I hope he's all right.
Yeah, I think Adams is I think if you roster Davonte Adams, you should be looking, again, just like Tyreek Hill, take one of these receivers that's like a fringe wide receiver one on this list and flip Adams for one of those guys plus, if you can.
Now, one last addition. The guy in the podcast said if Adams stays, because they can afford him if Rodgers leaves, he's going to get wide receiver one targets still. But it's from Jordan Love. So they could do shorter options, but he's going to be a red zone monster. And the guy even said, he goes, you might see the yardage dip down, but those touchdown numbers should still be there. So I'm not too worried. Like, Doug, we own him in Trade Addict 7. He's staying on the team. He's worth more to us than we're going to get for him in a trade, I feel.
Possibly. We should probably explore that, though. Just
Cut this. We don't want anybody here. Yeah.
So ride until the wheels fall off. Is that what you said? Yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, we have Chase, Jefferson, and Adams. So yeah, he's like our wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I would definitely explore options there on that front. Good point there.
Any commentary about Davonte Adams, James, before we move on?
No, except that if he does not stick with Rodgers, wherever he may go, it's going to be a different Davonte Adams, no matter the case. So
yeah. Agreed. All right, let's get on to our wide receiver 7 with a 14.5 ADP. This particular player, he's 24 years old, 6'3", 228. He's yoked. He was much higher on this list a year ago, but because of some of the inconsistencies with Seattle's offense. Now, we saw it at the end of the year with the big 3-touchdown game, and we're like, that's the DK we all know and love. But we saw Tyler Lockett get the majority of the target shares there and score the majority of the touchdowns, it seemed like, and get the big plays. DK was frustrating to own. But from a talent standpoint, DK Metcalf, I think he should be closer to A.J. Brown and CeeDee Lamb than some of the guys that he's around. So I think at wide receiver 7, DK, so we're in a league not together, Tyler. We don't co-own a team. But I was offered, I would give up 2 firsts for DK, which ended up being the 112 and the 114. And that was a slam auto accept. Like I was like, yes, boink. And did that in a cocaine heartbeat. So I'm really happy, but that just goes to show there are players that roster Metcalf out there that might be looking to sell for a below market price. Tyler, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm buying everywhere. I'd have him ahead of Tyreek Hill and Davonte Adams. So that's where I'm at. DK, phenomenal talent. It was all based off of Russ's up and down season injury. I am not worried. DK Metcalf is still one of the most talented receivers in the league. So give me all the DK I can. I'm all for buying.
James, what's your spin on DK? I didn't like him coming out, and he's proved me wrong. So I'm just going to say that.
Same. I didn't really trust him coming out of college, but tied to Russell Wilson is a nice thing. Whether or not Russell Wilson stays there, there's all kinds of rumors. It seems like every season there's a Russell Wilson rumor now.
That's because he's generating it on his end.
Yeah, pretty much.
Rodgers, look what I can do.
Is just great.
Sierra, come here when you make a TikTok.
But no, I agree with Tyler saying that I would rather have him than Tyreek Hill and Davonte Adams. I think age had a lot to do with it. But if we look back at this startup ADP, and I love doing this because there is a consensus on how these ADPs line up. And that's something that when you're playing Dynasty football, you have to definitely look at who is voting in this ADP, who was giving their opinion. And there's no name, so I'm not blaming anyone. But if you're taking Tyreek Hill or Davonte Adams at wide receiver at 5 overall or 6 overall, I mean, it's raising their value on this sheet. And I don't think it should be that way. I think in Dynasty, when you look at it like that, like younger wide receivers are more valuable. And if you own Tyreek Hill, I'd be flipping him for DK plus.
Yeah, a little extra on top with DK for sure. Yeah. All right, let's move on to our second rookie wide receiver on this list. Wide receiver 8, ADP of 15.6, and that is the rookie receptions leader. He took over. He broke Anquan Boldin's record, had over 100 receptions, and honestly, they didn't use him like they should have. So there's even more of a ceiling here, and that's Jalen Waddle of the Miami Dolphins. We saw him be an absolute target hog. Even with Devontae Parker back in the lineup, there was no Will Fuller for most of the season. Mike Gesicki was still there, but Jalen Waddle took over that receiving room, and he only made like maybe 1 or 2 really explosive plays all season, and that's what he's known for. So I think there's definitely some more meat on the bone here for Jalen Waddle. James, Waddle at wide receiver 8. Surprised or just right?
I think it's just right. I don't want to see him up there. I want to be able to still acquire him a little bit before we get into the 2022 season. And like you said, we have not seen anywhere near Jalen Waddle's ceiling. I am a big fan. He is a PPR monster. I think his yards after the catch will go up. And if they continue not to have a solid running back, we could see Jalen Waddle becoming more of a Deebo Samuel type. I think he had only like 2 or 3 carries, but he did get into the end zone. They need to utilize him more and get the ball into his hands. The guy is elusive, and he will definitely be a star for years to come. So, yeah, I'm on the Waddle train.
Tyler, what about you?
I have a question for James.
I love how he's trying to fight with me tonight.
What if Harbaugh goes to Miami? Same issues with him that he had with Jefferson?
Yeah, it would affect it. It would affect it because then you look at, are they going to stick with Tua?
Yeah.
That's another thing.
The whole reason why they got rid of Flores was because he wasn't on the Tua bandwagon. So
Flores wanted Watson.
Yep.
Yeah.
So personally, I think Tua's their guy.
Yep.
Whoever they
I'm not mad about that. I like Tua with
whoever
Waddle.
they hire.
Their connection's real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shower narratives all over the place.
Yeah. Ooh.
So much the coaching carousel has really dictated some of our opinions tonight. And, like Doug said at the beginning, let's not be so speculative about
is that a made up word?
No, speculative.
Speculative. There you go. You got it.
Unnecessarily.
The pronunciation police are in full force.
Hey, listen. When a Jersey guy says it's speculative, all right? Like,
he's got something he's got something in his meat tooth or something like that.
Speculative. Meatball tooth. All right.
Yeah, I love Waddle. I think he was such a buy low beginning of the year. People absolutely hated the landing spot. Tua started to play not great at first, and I actually bought for pretty cheap in a couple spots. Yeah, Waddle, he's a good player. I do fear about Tua.
I'm going to pause you right there because what's super interesting? So with Jalen Waddle, people hated the landing spot. He paid off. Yeah. DK Metcalf can't run routes. He paid off. AJ Brown, people hated the landing spot. He paid off. Yep. Justin Jefferson can only play in the slot. He paid off. Like maybe
Jamar Chase can't catch.
Jamar Chase.
Maybe we should start eyeballing SEC wide receivers a little bit more carefully. Is that what's going on here?
I'm just saying that a lot of people.
Cooper Kupp, he's too white.
He's too old coming out. He's not going to pay off. I just think it's interesting that 4 of these guys that we've talked about in the top 8 had glaring questions that a lot of people, if you read Twitter, were agreeing with, and they all shoved it in everyone's face that doubted them, which is pretty awesome. So I just wanted to put that out there as we were talking about the wide receivers. It just popped to me.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that loved Waddle, and it just goes to show you stick with your evaluation. I had AJ Brown at 103 that draft class, and I had Metcalf at 104. You know what caused me to drop AJ Brown? Landing spot and letting the voices get into my head. And that's
very Randy Orton thing to do.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I'll just stop on there.
Fair enough. Let's get to the next two wide receivers were amazing this year and took over the NFL. So for the first one is wide receiver 9, Deebo Samuel, overall ADP of 17.5, 26 years old. He's the Swiss Army knife. He does it on the ground. He does it through the air.
First guy in, last one out.
Watching Deebo Samuel this year with his yards after contact and the way that he fights through tackles, there's nobody in the league like him, and I'll say it. He was amazing.
Can I say it?
Of course, he's had an injury history.
Yes.
Now, he may be tied to a quarterback that runs next year because the Niners quarterback just threw a game-clinching interception to the Rams, and the Rams are going to the Super Bowl, so congrats to LA. They're going to play in their home stadium against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Congrats.
Could it be 2 years in a row the home team wins the Super Bowl in their stadium? That would be wild.
Congrats to Trey Lance because you just locked in your starting quarterback position for 2022.
Jimmy G came up small like he usually does.
Yep.
Trey Lance season, it's upon us. But Deebo, because they can use him in so many ways, the biggest concern for me with Deebo is just that injury history.
Yes.
I love watching him play football, though. He is one of the funnest players to watch. There's nobody like him in the league right now. It's crazy.
I just want to say, he's fun to watch, but at this price, I'm out. I mean, I'm selling.
I think that's fair.
You probably bought for a second at the beginning of the year, and you could probably get a first plus or one of these other young receivers that
you should be able to get a first plus. He's 17.5 ADP for sure.
Yep. He'll be 27. Like you said, there's some changes in the offense coming. And I feel like, escaped the injury this season. He had a couple that you were kind of worried
up here and there.
Yep. But nothing like he usually did. The major hamstring that just hampered him all season, or the ankle was
hampered him at the combine too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Senior Bowl week he was injured, and I mean it was like the first week he got injured in Senior Bowl, but he was dominating Senior Bowl. So yeah, it's literally been a thing for him for years, and it finally came together this season. It's great to see, but yeah, for me, it's pretty much like Tyreek Hill. You got to get out while you can.
Yeah, his value jumped significantly from last season to this season where we are now. So if you picked him up in the offseason, like Tyler said, you hit a gold mine. So maybe time to cash out. I agree with that.
ADP comparison.
I don't think he's going to be the casualty of Trey Lance though.
ADP they use him in way too many different ways.
I think he's more the focal point of the offense.
August 21st, he was overall 82 for ADP.
Yeah.
So
he's a high riser,
January 22nd, he's 17.5.
He's a diaper dandy.
And he's the Swiss Samuel.
He's a late riser, and that's what you always got to look for, is those late ones that are at the age 26 or 27, to where you're like, you got to make a tough choice. Hey, if your team's in it to win it, maybe hang on to it, but this is the chance where you can kind of hit the refresh button and get that value that, I mean, it's pretty much like changing your stock. Hey, you just got a stock that went up a ton. Cash out.
You know what's great about Deebo is his name is Deebo from like the Friday movie, and he plays just like that dude. He's just snatching people's chains and just mean. I love it.
Grabbing people's bicycles.
Yep.
There's
my bicycle, man.
Wait,
bully.
Juju.
Mama chain.
Juju, that's where it went all along. Deebo Samuel took your bike.
He took your bicycle. That's why he went off this
year.
Wow.
We're the Robert Stack of podcasts with Unsolved Mysteries.
Like 5 years. We finally figured it out. Man.
This week on Unsolved Mysteries with your host,
Hardy Boys. Here we are.
That's right. Jeff, I'll be Jeff Hardy. You can be Matt.
They found the bicycle in a train car in the middle of the woods.
Man, that's my mama's chain. All right, let's get to Cooper Kupp. He's the wide receiver 10.
My mama's bike
Obviously, he won the triple crown of receivers this year. So most touchdowns, most receptions, most yards. And to me, that says it's time to sell, boys. He's 28 years old.
Wait, I just saw on Twitter that's wrong.
No. ADP of 17. You think he's going to do that again?
No.
So,
no way.
July of 2021, 68.67. He is now at 17.6. So not as much as Deebo, but
they are
very
the two
similar.
Biggest risers.
Yeah.
By a country mile, for sure. What are we doing with Cooper Kupp? I think we can all unanimously. I almost said anonymously.
Anonymously?
We all anonymously.
The anonymous people would play.
It all depends. He's going to be 29, and if you're not getting the value, hang on to him, just ride it. But for me, I'm all about selling for at least 2 first. I mean, Michael Thomas price that you could get for him when he went off.
Remember Michael Thomas?
Yeah,
Wait,
there's people out there. The name
the
is
good
hot
one
right now. Recency bias. Drop
The
it
one
like
that's going to be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the good Michael Thomas.
The good
I
Michael
told you
Thomas.
guys. I told you.
The good Mike Thomas. Yeah, I think we're arousing. We're not arousing. It's a wow. That came
Speak
out wrong.
for yourself.
necessarily speaking.
Man, we're a hot mess. So yes, sell Cooper Kupp. Let's get to wide receiver 11. Now, fall off of ADP. Cooper Kupp is wide receiver 10 at ADP of 17. We go to 24 for the next wide receiver, and he's wide receiver 11. God, I don't know what got into me all of a sudden. T. Higgins. He's obviously tied to Joe Burrow, just like Jamar Chase. He took over some games too. I think Joe Burrow can support 2 wide receiver 1s. I've been saying it since they drafted Chase. I think it's possible. I was all over Higgins and acquiring him on the cheap. I sold Aaron Jones for T. Higgins in a second at the beginning of the season because I was that sold on T. Higgins, and I still am. I think he's awesome. He's going to have those target games where he gets 15 targets. Like, he went over 100 yards today. Like, low key, nice game. So T. Higgins, to me, I think he's still a buy, to be completely honest.
Is he a wide receiver or a wide receiver?
He's a wide receiver.
So T. Higgins, you heard it in the broadcast today with Tony Romo. Tony Romo said they use this guy deep. They need to get that big body in the middle. You know what they did today? They got him in the middle. They gave him some slants. He took some yards after catch.
Yep.
And he has that ability. He's not like Mike Evans, where Mike Evans catches it and then he falls. For me, T. Higgins actually has some yard after catch
the old
ability.
Torrey Holt catch it, fall over.
Catch it, fall over.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, T. Higgins, I think he's safe to me. He's going to get you 1,100 yards, 8 to 12 touchdowns, depending on Burrow's year. And he's a great wide receiver too. Now at this price,
It's creeping up there.
It's getting up there. Not there yet, because I'm looking at the people behind him.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's perfect. I'm holding.
Okay. James, what say you about Mr. Higgins?
I'm not getting rid of him if I have him. I picked him up everywhere back in September when he had his dip in production, and everybody was hot on Jamar Chase
right now.
Oh, why are you always fighting? You're always fighting me. Every time I come on, I try to say something. You want to fight over the spice? Let's get some spice.
Spice Wars.
Listen, like you said, great wide receiver too, very young, the age of 23. He is a pinpoint in that offense. He will continue to just be productive. That's it. Yeah, productive. Sorry.
Here's the thing. If God forbid anything happens to Chase, he has a wide receiver 1 profile.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I love about him.
And that's when his value is going to really spike.
Speaking of players, I think have spiked.
Ooh. Are we going to get to the next one? Is that
yes?
Is we're alluding
to?
Yeah.
All
right. Let the host do his job. So, wide receiver
segue.
Throwing up the layup.
Wide receiver 12, ADP of 25 overall, lost his starting quarterback to retirement, which was Big Ben Roethlisberger, an absolute target hog since he's been in Pittsburgh. It's Deontay Johnson, 25 years old. Probably one of my favorite receivers to watch in the league. You know, when they drafted him in the 3rd round, he got a lot of Antonio Brown comparisons. Now, he's not as good as Antonio Brown, but he cleaned up the drops, which everyone was bagging on him in 2024. He cleaned up the drops. He does have that ability to stretch the field. He's not just a slot guy. They can use him all over the place. But it's going to be who's the quarterback? Is it going to be Mason Rudolph like they say? The answer is probably not, because it's Pittsburgh. They're not going to do that. Is it Jameis Winston? Now that I'd like. I would like that a lot. I've always kind of envisioned. I've always envisioned Jameis there for some reason, and I don't know why.
I don't see Baker.
There's literally the exact same amount of money freed up that Kirk Cousins is owed this year. Just
maybe Kirk goes to Pittsburgh.
Exactly.
I wouldn't mind that.
They play a lot of primetime games, so Kirk better get his stuff together.
Screwed. They're not going for Kirk. Just on that alone.
No.
But no, I think Deontay Johnson can be a guy that I would like to hold on to and to see what happens. If he's getting that much target share, I think he had like over 160 targets.
Yeah,
he's getting the production. he's in the top 10. What I know he had a lot. I don't know what he did last year in 2020, but I
think he finished at wide receiver 7 or 8 this year.
Yeah, he's inside the top 10 for receivers on a seasonal basis. Mm-hmm. I think it continues. He's definitely the wide receiver 1 on that franchise. It's not Claypool, and it's definitely not James Washington. Sorry, Doug. I know he's
a free agent.
No, Tyler's a James Washington guy.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm more of a Juju guy. Or
more of a Juju guy. Yeah, Juju's not sticking around either. I think Deontay Johnson takes the cake, and it's him and Najee Harris as the main producers, and the Muth. As the main producers for this offense moving forward. Yes, we don't know the quarterback situation. We're not going to know for a little bit, but we'll find out sooner or later. That's why I'm holding right now. I think it works out either way because, the field is going to be split no matter who they bring in there as the quarterback. Half the crew is going to say, oh, yeah, we like Deontay Johnson more now. Some people are going to say we don't like him as much. So there is some trade room there. So later in the offseason, I'm saying.
Gotcha. All right. So that wraps up the top 12. So the first round of wide receivers, if you will. So now we're going to go through the exercise of give me some guys when you were looking at this list that you were like, I'm going to sell him at that ADP or I am going to scoop him up really, really fast at that ADP. So Tyler, I will start with you. Give me a couple of names that popped up to you on Dynasty League Football's January 2022 ADP.
Oh man, like this one's kind of tough because there's a lot of good buys out here. I'm looking at the list right now. I mean, Gabe Davis should be wide receiver 1. And he's not even
He's
close.
Wide receiver 50.
48 on this list. I was very upset about that.
For me, I'm going to have to go. I gotta, Doug, I love this guy too much to not mention him. Chris Godwin. I know he's had ACL surgery. A lot of questions with him now. I don't think, personally, I think the Brady retirement was just like you mentioned. I do think he did not want to let it out this quickly.
No, but Tom Brady's all about social media. He wanted to do it on his own channels, yada, yada. Something leaked. And on February 4th, he's due $10 million bonus for the 2022 season. Yeah, he's not going to retire and give up $10 million, even though he can afford to.
Yeah, he could easily afford to, but he's thinking to himself, he's like, hey, that's another vacation home. Why not wait? I mean, it's less than a week away. Why not wait? So personally, I do think he's gone. Kyle Trask, I think, is stepping in. Maybe they might go a different route, like Jimmy G.
Jameis, come back.
Jimmy G could be the guy. I mean, the heir apparent to Brady again. Godwin, I do think leaves, but for me, Godwin has that skill set that everybody's like, oh, well, you said earlier that receivers don't do well in new teams. Godwin is such a finesse player. His route running is so good, and his hands are just solid.
Godwin to the Colts.
I think Godwin just fits anywhere and is instantly the dude. Godwin to the Jets. I know that we have issues with that. I still think that works. Godwin to anywhere. Jacksonville. Give Trevor Lawrence a phenomenal wide receiver 1, and that's it. I think Godwin, you put that ACL narrative in there, and people are going to eat that up. Like, oh, he's got an ACL. Brady's probably not coming back. Keep with that. You got to find a story. Be a storyteller. Be a car salesman.
What do they call that? Spin a. What is it? Spin a
web.
Yeah, spin a web. Weave a tail.
Yeah, that's it.
Any other names, Tyler, that popped out to you before we get to James?
I'm not going to take one from James. I
have a couple, so go ahead. I don't care.
Rashad Bateman at wide receiver 30.
Yeah, he stuck out to me too.
All right, you know what? I'll let you have him. I'll let you keep him. Hunter Renfrow, easily the biggest buy.
Yeah.
Look who's coming into town. McDaniels.
Nobody loves a white slot receiver more than Josh McDaniels offense.
Dude, wow.
It's
Hunter, true. Man, I just put that together when you said it, and I'm like,
I saw his
damn,
name,
that makes a lot of sense.
And I remember the hire, and I'm like, that's it. Like,
he's got his Welker and Edelman.
Renfro's the next Edelman.
We are walking.
He's already
down
better
Narrative
than Edelman
Street.
was, but that's fine.
We're walking down Narrative Street right now, and I mean,
hand in hand, I might add.
We are living it. Carr is going to feed Renfrow target after target. McDaniels probably went to the Raiders just for Renfrow. He's like, yes, this is it. This is what I've been needing. Oh, Derek Carr, is that who you're talking about? No, Renfrow. This is what I needed. So, Renfrow at wide receiver 38 at ADP overall 76.
And he was a rock solid wide receiver too this season.
Yeah, and had wide receiver 1 weeks.
Yep.
Renfrow, I would not be shocked if he's an 8 to 10 target a game guy.
I like that. James, who you got?
I'm going to go with Darnell Mooney.
That was another one I was
wide receiver 36. I mean, he is the focal point. Allen Robinson is obviously going to move on from that organization. Darnell Mooney, over 1,000 yards, 140 targets. He only caught 80 balls. That needs to go up, and it should go up. And only 1 touchdown. He finished as wide receiver 23 in 2021 with 1 touchdown. So his ceiling is more of a high-end wide receiver 2, and you're getting him at a wide receiver 3 price right now. So if you can, I would go out and buy him. He is going to be the number 1 target on the Bears organization.
Yeah, look who they just brought in. They brought in Green Bay's offensive play caller.
Is he going to be the Davonte Adams for the Bears?
He could be. He could be. Another guy, Nico Collins, I'm going to sneak in here. Doug, I know you'd like this name to be popped up. Wide receiver 61. And I talked about day 3 receivers not really coming to fruition because teams feel like they can't. Nico Collins was a day 2 player. So I think they want him to be part of that future.
I like that, Tyler. One last guy I'd like to bring up, Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 25. So
I knew you were going to say that.
In this situation. Now, we've talked about him in the past, and we always speculate when we talk about players, which is fun. Speculative. But do you see his price getting any higher? I mean, he would have to repeat the production that he put up this year. And some of these guys ahead of him have to drop, which, can happen in both stints, but I don't think
if it gets higher, it's due to them not bringing another name and him getting 8 to 10 targets a week. Like that's what's got to happen.
Yeah, it could very well happen, but it's kind of iffy. So you roll a dice on him a little bit, but he's still acquirable right now.
Hey, I know who else you acquired. Though. Kadarius Toney, wide receiver 41 with
Dabo. He's way down there, huh? Man, I don't even know if I peeked down that far.
Dabo
I did. Wide receiver 48. It's a disrespect. Gabriel Davis.
Gabe Davis. Yeah.
Gabe Davis, wide receiver 50. Sorry.
So, like I said, good teams find good talent at good prices. And
it was only a matter of time for Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna mix it up. I'm gonna give you some deep cuts. On mine. One is Curtis Samuel. I've always believed in Curtis Samuel. In 2020, he had over 1,000 yards receiving, was a wide receiver 2 on the season in fantasy points. Signs with Washington, has an injury-riddled season. Still only 25 years old, but a player that can be used like Deebo Samuel. Remember, Curtis Samuel had a lot of rushes out of the backfield. Super versatile. I like getting Curtis Samuel at wide receiver 64. Another one at wide receiver 73. We talked about the Jets a little bit with maybe Chris Godwin going there. What about Braxton Berrios? He was really good in the last month of the season.
McDaniels will snag him up.
Maybe. So I like Braxton Berrios at wide receiver 73. And then if we're looking like super deep cuts, now this guy could be replaced, but you know who was impressive to me? It was Zay Jones. Left for dead, Zay Jones out of Buffalo. He had the mental health issues, but he played really well down the stretch for the Raiders. We all thought it was going to be Bryan Edwards being a thing. But Zay Jones, wide receiver 89, like if he's a throw-in in a trade and maybe he ends up being a wide receiver 2 there, I'd be okay.
He's the new Michael Crabtree.
I'm going to go even deeper.
No, you can't. I'm going to go deeper.
I'm going to go wide receiver 98, Juwan Jennings from San Francisco.
I'm going deeper.
Ooh, you just named wide receiver players that I have.
Wide receiver 103, Anthony Schwartz. Say a guy like Kirk Cousins goes. Okay. He is a very fast guy. He's only 21 right now. Very young. They drafted him in the 3rd round. That means they like him there. Mm-hmm. So for me, Anthony Schwartz, if they do get a different quarterback or Baker is fully healthy, Schwartz could be a name there, especially if they don't go early in the 1st round at receiver.
I'm going deeper. I'm going to go deeper. This guy was actually pretty good until he got hurt. Jamal Agnew from Jacksonville.
Yeah, yep.
fun little player. And I'll give you one. This has been a guy. I'm a Florida State fan, as many people know this. He's buried on the depth chart. He's never going to play. I believe he's a free agent.
Every year.
Only 24 years old, 6'5", 228 pounds, and makes some of the most insane catches in the NFL every year.
He'll never get any playing time, though.
It's Auden Tate. But if he signs somewhere, I think Auden Tate is good. I don't care what anybody tells me. Deep cuts.
Also, Laquan Treadwell. I mean,
no, I think wide receiver 83 is actually pretty interesting. Paris Campbell, when he was healthy, he was actually very good.
Yeah, it's only
and you can get him very, very inexpensive. He's only 24. I like that as a late round buy. Why ADP of 191 or 189 overall? Yeah.
So that is going to wrap us up this week on Dynasty Happy Hour. Thank you again to Fantasy Points Media Network and to Trophy Smack. Make sure you use code DHHRing to get that $60 value fantasy ring when you place your order to finally square up with your league. So for James, for Tyler, for all the wide receivers we talked about, it's been the Dynasty Happy Hour, and we'll see you next week.